right, you guys are keeping good social distance here. That's good. Are you ready? Can you hear me? You can hear me okay even if I'm not shouting? Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you. I want to thank the postal workers for joining me today at this really important gathering. So Americans and Minnesotans depend on the post office. It is such a part of our lives that it is even enshrined in the Constitution. It is how Minnesotans get their medicine. 80% of VA outpatient prescriptions are delivered by the U.S. mail, and it's how people get their letters and their packages, their Social Security checks, and their other benefits. And it's how thousands of Minnesotans are planning, hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans are planning on voting this year. So the post office has never been about politics. It is about being reliable and offering dependable service that Minnesotans count on, especially in small towns and rural areas. So as you will hear, for letter carriers delivering mail on time is in their DNA. But instead of shoring up the post office, the current Postmaster General, who is a big campaign fundraiser and supporter for the president, has been disrupting and undermining service. And so that's what I was here today to see. How is that happening? What impact is that having on the service that Minnesotans expect? And I can tell you that I have been hearing from many, many of my constituents about mail that is coming late, that is unreliable, that they're not seeing in the same way that they would want to see it. And that's not the fault of the hardworking folks behind me or the people that work so hard inside that building. That is the fault of this kind of chaotic approach and rapid-fire change that we've been seeing at the federal level. And that's what I'm here to make sure does not impact the service that these amazing public servants are able to offer. Now, I can go through all of the steps that this current Postmaster General, who was appointed in June, has gone through to undermine the service and reliability of the post office. I was glad to see that today he has issued, I guess, a new letter saying that he's going to suspend those changes for the time being. But right now, the core question ahead of us is what is happening in Washington, D.C. with the U.S. Postal Service, and is this service being politicized by a president who has spent many, many comments talking about undermining the United States Post Office and how little he respects it. So this is, I'm glad to say that I saw inside today people working really hard to provide good quality service. You'll hear more about that from the postal workers behind me. But my job in Washington is to make sure that that continues for the long run. And that is why I've asked with Elizabeth Warren and others of my colleagues that the Inspector General at the U.S. Post Office commence an investigation to understand why these changes that have been put out there, what impact they'll have on service, and also what conflicts of interest does this Postmaster General have, a person who is leading the United States Postal Service but also has major investments in competitor businesses to the Post Office. And it is why I'm glad that the Postmaster General will be coming before the Senate, I believe on Friday, to answer some of these questions. That's what we have been calling for, and I look forward to getting answers from him then as well. So let me stop there, and I'll turn to Todd to say a few words.
Thank you. I'm Todd Elkerton, T-O-D-D, Elkerton, E-L-K-E-R-T-O-N. I'm the local president for the St. Paul American Postal Workers Union. We represent postal workers in eastern Minnesota, western Wisconsin, and then in this facility. And then we have the carrier president here for St. Paul. His name's Joel Malkush. Did I pronounce it? Malkush. And then I have Bernard from Minneapolis, and they have some people in this NDC. But basically, I was asked if I'd speak, and I just want to tell everybody that as a postal worker, I spent 30 years working with the people that work inside of there, and your mail is vitally important to them. So when it comes in, they want to make sure it goes out the next day, and that's why they're concerned about the actions that have happened over the last month and a half, and they really are unprecedented. We've never seen a reduction or a proposal of a reduction of the amount of letter processing capacity that we've seen or that they've done. So today's announcement, they're going to stop it, really stops one machine from going out the door. They've already taken 7. and those letter processing machines process 25,000 pieces an hour, 20 hours a day. You can do the math. I mean, it's almost, what did I figure? Somewhere between 4.5 and 5 million pieces a day that we've lost capacity for. Now we've had a reduction in mail volume because of the pandemic as far as letters and flats, but we've seen a huge increase in parcels. Our parcel volumes are the same as what they are at Christmas. But if you're concerned about your ballots and your election mail getting to the public, I know that these postal workers and the carriers have been trained to recognize that, and we're going to make it a priority that your vote counts. Even on primary day, we found 3 ballots in the plant that were supposed to be in Rochester. We delivered them down to Rochester, so they didn't have to wait till Thursday to get them counted. So we're going to go the extra mile to make sure that in this state your absentee ballots are counted, and that. But we're concerned. There's financial issues with the post office from the legislation in 2006, and we've seen a slow degradation in service standards and the ability to process that mail. If you give us the tools, we'll get that mail out the next day, because that's what we've done. That's what we've done in the past, and we can continue to do it. So we're just looking for kind of stopgap, because I don't think they have plans that when the mail volume does come back this fall, that we have the ability to really process it the way we're supposed to do, and that we're going to see some delays in the near future. But if we can get help from Congress to push forward some help and change the law that has really hamstringed us, I think we can move forward and serve the American public like they expect. But in the meantime, I need every citizen of this state to contact their representatives and senators and say, we need help. The post office is important to us. We rely on it for our Social Security checks. We rely on it for our medicine, and it's slowing down and it's impacting us. The business owners are getting impacted. We're at the center of a supply chain in the United States. We carry FedEx, we carry UPS, we carry DHL. We carry Amazon to the destination of homes. And sometimes their slowdown, we get blamed for it because they've slowed their process down, and then we take it to the front door, and then it's like, how come this took 2 weeks to do this when it only took 3 or 4 days before? So it's a system issue, and as long as we can get some help here, I think we can move forward. But it's going to take everybody getting involved. And I think we have bipartisan support within the House and the Senate. It's just we're hitting a roadblock at the White House, and that's our concern moving forward. So that's all I have to say. If
Great. Do you want to? Are you good? Or do you want to?
Yeah, I can say just a few things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Joel Malkush, Joel Malkush. I am the president of the St. Paul Letter Carriers Union, National Association of Letter Carriers. One thing I just want to make this quick, but the one thing is these letter carriers are out there. They're part of the community. They enjoy what they do. Every day that they're out there, they want to do the best job they can and get the mail out to the customers. Right now, they feel a little bit hampered with that. I think, with some changes with Tina and Congress and the Senate coming together to make sure the post office is viable, we can make sure that these carriers are out there and the postal workers are doing their job and getting the mail to where it needs to be. We do it during Christmas. We can do it during an election. This is a cakewalk for the letter carriers. They just need the tools to do it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep. I mean, we've already seen a loss of capacity in this facility, and if you multiply that across the country, you can imagine the impact that potentially has. The Postmaster General has sent out a letter saying that he's going to suspend these changes, but that he intends to take them back up again after the election. That doesn't give me any great sense of confidence. It makes me be even more worried about what their intentions are. So I think this is why I'm pushing for Congress to call on them to stop this, to reverse the changes that they have made so far. Also, it's so important that we get the funding to the post office that they need in this moment. The House HEROES Act, which passed on May 15th of this year, included $25 billion in much-needed funding to shore up the finances of the post office. That is still just in a stalemate with the White House refusing. In fact, I mean, the president said the reason we want that money, the reason he doesn't want that money is because it would he wants to hurt mail-in balloting. So these folks are prepared to move hell or high water to make sure that people's medicine and mail and ballots get delivered on time. We just need a postal service in Washington that's supporting their work. Well, I mean, it is counterintuitive. The argument is that they have other more efficient machines, but the bottom line is that they are reducing capacity. And that has an impact, I believe, on the ability of these folks to be able to deal with surge capacity when that happens. And that has the potential of degrading the service levels that Americans expect. Now, if you layer on top of that the rules that, or the guidance that the Postmaster General put out in July, talking about barring overtime, about not letting mail carriers hold back for the mail that's been sorted a little later in order to deliver it that day and waiting until the next day, that is another example of degrading service, and that's not what we need right now. What questions would I have for the postmaster? Well, I have two basic questions. Why is he doing this now in the middle of a global pandemic while we have the most important election in my lifetime less than 3 months away? That's my first set of questions. And the second question, though, is what are his conflicts of interest in this moment as a significant investor in businesses that compete with the post office at the same time that he's taking steps, arguably, to damage the service of the post office? I want to know what that's about.
You have a bug on your back.
Oh.
There you go.
I had a bee on my back. Yeah. What would I say? Would you like, maybe I'll say, and then maybe you would like to hear from them. Well, what I would say to letter carriers and postal workers and all of the people that come together to make sure that mail is delivered on time, this is what we agree as a country that we're going to do together. It is what we all agree is important. The post office is one of the most revered government bodies that we have in this country, and I want them to know that I'm going to do everything I can to protect their ability to do their job, to have the resources that they need to do the job that they want to do, especially in this moment. But would some of you, would anyone else like to comment?
Well, with the trucks and the airlines, can you just re-ask that question?
She's asking, what would we say to the post office, to the workers who are worried about their jobs and their futures in this moment?
Right. And like I said, we really do need a change in the laws that were created in 2006, change this system that hamstrung the post office for the revenue that they're able to create, and allow us to deliver first-class service, expedited service. Everybody wants things faster and whatever. For a couple cents on a first-class cents, we could probably get that. But the way the law and the rate commissions all work is we can't get that additional. So then what it is it's a slowing down of the mail. And we're asking for that legislation for 10 years, and Congress has not been able to agree. And that's neither here nor there, but this pandemic has brought to a head of what's really happening. But can I follow one question of his? So the machine disappearing, and I said it's unprecedented. In the past, when we've had a drop in mail volume, what they'll do is they'll come to us and say, we're going to tarp a machine. So basically we're going to turn it off, and then if the mail volume comes back, we'll turn it back on, but if it doesn't come back, then we're going to dismantle that machine. And we've seen 4 machines that have been dismantled over a course of 8 years. But we went through this in 2008 recession. We saw the mail volumes plummet, and then it came back, and it came back hard. And that's what our big worry is losing all this capacity and taking it out of the building and out of commission is really going to hamstring us if we really see what as we come out of this pandemic and the economic and business starts coming back, that we're not going to have the capacity to deliver this in a timely manner. And that's our big concern today. But Also the unified call that Congress really needs to stabilize the funding so our employees can come do their job. At the end of the day, that will dictate how many employees we have, what we do, and it's always been that way for 100 years. I mean, we've been here to bind the nation together and you know, allow us to communicate. That was what is envisioned by Benjamin Franklin before they wrote the Constitution. I mean, the post office is in the Constitution. I think it's the only federal agency where it's listed in the Constitution itself. This was important in order to make the United States united, to bring these colonies together, allow them to communicate. We're at the center of that, and we want to do our job. I mean, everybody in that building is fighting really hard to say, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do it. The fear of the pandemic hit us. They've been really good about if they're sick, staying home so the rest of us don't get sick. We've done really well with this. And then you haven't seen the impacts of the mail that you've seen in other places, but those employees in there really are committed to making sure that we serve this public and do our job every day. It's who we are. It's what's drilled into us. We were taught if that mail doesn't go out the next day, we're going to get in trouble and possibly fired because we delayed that mail. Now we're seeing it happen, and we're going, it's being directed from above, and we're really having a hard time with that.
All right. Nope. I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to get my mask back on. Good to see you. Good to see you, too.
We appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Oh,
We really do.
well, I think it's a really good